Welcome to the Millennial and a Boomer Walk into a Coffee Bar podcast.
The very best podcast to get your life advice in the form of a grande caramel macchiato in a venti cup, 1/3 whole milk, 1/3 almond milk, 1/3 soy milk, double the amount of vanilla syrup, caramel wall in the cup, no caramel drizzle on top, upside down, of course, tall ice cup, whipped cream, rounded lid, one shot extra espresso, decaf, cinnamon sprinkled on the top, and for the name, that's David, spelled Dafydd, please.
Or to get your business, finance, and life support black coffee advice, I'm Dan, I'm a Boomer.
And I'm Chase, the Millennial. Thanks for joining us today.
Welcome back, another episode, and we're locked and loaded, ready to go. Finances. That's exactly what we're talking about for a couple of the next episodes.
Well, if you missed our primer on finances, we talked about that in the last episode. So if you want to catch up and figure out why we're talking about some of the stats around millennials and boomers and finances and the mistakes that have been made and maybe a little bit on how to fix some of them.
Well, and to be honest with you, the way that this whole thing started is my son sent me an article that accused me of being his problem. The boomer is the problem for all the financial woes of all of the millennials.
Well, wait till you go back and listen to the episodes where you were out of the country and I talked about millennials being the real greatest generation.
I've got to fix that. I have got to fix that. So, but anyway, we're ready to go, and let's jump right into it. Financial proficiency. It's one of the most important skills you can develop. Notice how I said that. It's a skill, and it can be developed. It's often pretty daunting, also overwhelming, but you can learn it and you can apply it. And a lot of the times people just don't even understand it. They don't take the opportunity to jump into it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to call this out for our listeners. You say, I am terrible with money. The good news is you can be great with money.
Yeah.
You can start today and be great with money. It's not something that you're always going to be bad at money. You can be. We can help you get to that proficiency level. So there's a couple different areas when we talk about financial proficiency. There are broad areas, right? What are some of those broad areas? Well, understanding interest rates. If you live in 2024 and you ever turn on the news, one of the things you're going to hear them talk about are interest rates.
Right. You know, and interest rates for mortgages now is, they say high, but in my lifetime, it's not that high. It's just not low. And so what does that mean to you as a home purchaser? Car and automobile interest rates. People buy a car, that's the car I want. That's the price tag I want. They don't even bother to check the interest rates, which can be devastating. I read an article about a lady. She's been making payments on an SUV for 4 years, and her principal is still the same amount. And she shakes her head, and I'm like, I'm shaking my head. That's why you need to know some of these basic understanding, interest rates. Here's another one, the stock market. The stock market overall for the last generations and generations has paid in the positive. Now there's problems here and there and micro bursts and depressions and things like that. But for the most part, the stock market is not a bad way for a long-term investor. Why? We'll jump into some of that as well.
So let's talk about how to take control of your money, right? That's the most important piece, is answering the question, how do I do this?
Right. And it's pretty straightforward, you know, to understand the basics of financial concepts. You know, how much do I have coming in? How much do I have going out? How much do I owe to so-and-so? How much should I save? Things like that. But understanding the basic financial concepts, and we'll go through some of those financial concepts that might sound intuitive. They might sound, well, that's kind of a no-brainer. But believe me, when I look and see that 50 or 60% of the people have got huge credit card debt, the basics of understanding financial concepts is not sound.
And I want to call out here that there's two pieces to financial concepts. There's the basics, and that's the stuff that you must know in order to be good financially. But then there's this whole other world of financial concepts that you do not need to know. There are all these nerds on Wall Street that do all these really technical things. You don't need to know any of that.
Nope.
You do not have to know how to do these financial algorithms to be good with your personal finances.
It's just like your job. Manage your own career. Now we're coming back with the basics of saying manage your own financial abilities. And the thing is, you can develop good habits and good budgeting habits. Be wise with your money. If you can't pay for it and you can't afford it, then you don't buy it. Some of the basics like that, but develop good budgeting habits, spending habits, and saving habits.
All right, and I've got a lot to say about budgeting habits, but we're actually going to do an entire episode on budgeting. So I'm going to save some of those. The third how is know how to invest your money wisely. And investing is a really kind of big unknown word for some people, but it's a really simple idea. Put your money in a thing that will improve financially over time.
Right.
So let's give a bad example and a good example. All right, a bad example is a cell phone, right? Dropping $1,300, $1,400 on a brand new cell phone is not a good investment. Now, I have an expensive, I got an iPhone, it's right here recording, right? You have an expensive iPhone, but there's a big difference here. We know that that's not a good investment.
Right.
It's an item that I use to go through life. And I would consider myself a power user on an iPhone. I travel a lot. I use a lot of the features, but it's just that. It's a tool that I'm paying for, not an investment. All right, give us an example of a good investment. Where is somewhere that's good?
Let me touch on a bad investment. I was reading this article the other day, and this lady was starting out as a young career person, and she sold a house. And it was one of the first houses she sold, and she got like $125,000 for her. That's what she made on selling this house. Boy, she went out, she bought a car, she bought clothes, she dressed to kill, and life went on. She was pretty successful as a real estate agent. She actually went back and looked at what she had done, and there were some houses that were $95,000 when she had made $125,000. And she said, I should have bought one of those houses because that house is now worth $700,000. And she said, I don't have the car that I bought with that first paycheck. I don't have the clothes that I bought when I had that first paycheck, but I guarantee you I could have had that house. So a bad investment is a car. A bad investment is a cell phone. A bad investment. Now, they're necessities, I get that and everything else, but you got to be very careful about what you're going to do. An investment should be something that appreciates. Now,
Ooh, big word alert, big word alert.
It makes more money as time goes by, right?
Yeah.
But we do have some bad examples as well that we just talked about. But then what are some good examples? Well, a good example would be to put it in a certificate of deposit or something, a savings account. That just doesn't pay you. It's pretty safe, but it pays you a pittance. But something that is going to pay you back, and you are going to manage your risk. If you wanted to go buy a stock, go big or go home. I want to get rewarded big time. But you got to evaluate the risk. So some good investments can be gold, silver, things like that. And I know we're saying that probably some of these millennials are like, I can't even afford my regular monthly payment. Here you guys are talking about investments. There's little things that you can do, and we'll touch on some of those as well, that are good investments.
Yeah.
Just don't make a bad investment and don't get that clouded. There are good and bad.
Yeah. Yep. And there's differences between investments and a purchase required to move on with life.
Right.
And so we've got to separate good investment, bad investment, and if it's something that's not an investment, is it something that is helping you do X, Y, or Z?
Right.
Just know you don't get to use the word invest in that phone or that car because they're not good investments.
Right.
They're depreciating assets.
Well, and you know, little kids can say, I need to make an investment to be able to make money. I need to buy a sign or some paint for my lemonade stand. Where am I going to get $5 to make some paint? Hey, go do it. That's a good investment, right? But if you come back and say, well, I want to buy a lawnmower because I want to start my own lawn mowing business, and you get one that's automated, power driven, zero twist and turn and all that stuff, and you spend $20,000 on it, that's probably not a good investment for an upstart of a business. Get a push mower.
Get a push mower. Yeah. Oh boy. Well, okay, so understanding basic financial concepts first. Second, develop good budgeting habits. We're going to talk about that in a little while. Third, know how to invest your money wisely. And number 4, lay it on us.
Confidence. Feel confident in making informed financial decisions. The biggest problem with debt is all of a sudden off the cuff buying. You need to be able to make decisions based off of investigation and information. And so feel confident in that. We can touch on some of the investments and things that you can do. And there are a wealth of, notice how I figured that, put that in. There's a wealth of information out there on how to go and benefit on informed financial decisions. So know how to invest your money wisely and feel confident about doing it. So those are the kind of things that we want to go over in the next few episodes.
So let us lay this out for you for a few minutes then. No matter your age, no matter your background, no matter all the weird little fine print in every contract, right? It doesn't matter where you came from in your financial discovery. There is always more to learn. And that stands true for the people that are on Wall Street. If they ever stop learning, they stop making money because things are always changing. But we are going to give you the foundational principles that they do not determine how the ebbs and flows of life happen. These are just good financial things that work no matter what changes around you.
Right.
Next, coming from the rocket scientist.
You don't need to be a rocket scientist to invest. You don't need to be savvy, slick, Wall Street guru to be able to do it, but you need to stick to the basics. There's some basics in understanding of investing. It's never, ever, ever too late to improve your financial understanding and your financial, I'll call it literacy. There's been a couple of information out there that call it financial literacy, but you can start learning about the basics of budgeting, the basics of spending, and the basics of saving. And that's what we're talking about here. A lot of people say, whoa, I'm so upside down. Well, you can do something about it. And now I'm saying it's starting to sound like Dave Ramsey. I'm a lot better looking than Dave Ramsey, but we just lost all of his listeners too. So.
You both look about the same with the boomers. You both got the white goatee and no hair.
Yep. And it doesn't matter how much you earn. Let me say that again. You don't have to be stinking rich to be able to budget and spend and save. You just need to have some source of income. Everybody has expenses, but few people actually take the time to save for a rainy day.
So here's an interesting thing. I read the Ramsey Solutions team, or whatever they're called these days. They did a really interesting study on millionaires. And one of the points was that millionaires are made, not born.
Yeah.
Okay, here are the top 5 careers for millionaires. Now, they had thousands of people that they interviewed for this across all different jobs, all different regions of the U.S. Okay, here are the 5 most common millionaires in the United States as of 2019 or something like that. The first was an engineer. Makes sense. The second was an accountant or a CPA.
That makes sense.
Makes sense. The third was an attorney. That makes sense. The fourth was management, whatever that means. Okay. You know what the 5th most likely position to have millionaires are? The teachers.
Really?
That one blew me away because everyone always talks about teachers don't make enough money. That's another conversation for another day. But the point is, teachers are not making $200,000 a year. They're making 40 to 80 on average, and that's the 5th most likely position to be a millionaire in the United States as of 2019.
I heard, I like to read articles about finances and this. There was a guy, he averaged $40,000 a year. That was his income. So, to average, he made less and he made more, but he had over $1,800,000 in savings for his retirement. He was just fine, but at $40,000 a year. So it's not how much you make, it's what you do, and a lot of it is on how much you spend. Live within your means. Live within, and the basic premise here is know how to handle your money wisely. And that's kind of what we're talking about. And I'm sure some people are going to say, well, duh, that's a no-brainer. A lot of boomers out there rolling their eyes and saying, this is pretty elementary, guys. Give us some meat on the bones. This is the basics. And the premise is how to handle your money wisely.
So I want to take a second to break down two different ideas. And this is not in the notes. This one's free. Okay. There are two different things that people talk about when they talk about people who have money. The first is someone who's rich, and the second one is someone who has wealth. And I think there's a stark difference between these two, because when people say that guy is rich, what does he mean? He's got a fancy watch, he's got a fancy car, he's got fancy clothes, he's got a fancy house.
And he's probably not rich.
And he's probably in debt up to his eyeballs.
Right.
And then there are the people who have wealth. And these are the people who are probably just like you and me, the people that live next door to you, and they're sitting on $2-3 million, but you would never know it.
Right. Especially the way they live.
Because of the way they live. They have consciously made the choice, I'm not going to go live outlandish. I'm going to save and invest and grow my wealth. And the Bible talks about this, right? A good man is going to have an inheritance for his children's children.
Yeah.
Rich people don't have an inheritance for the children's children, because as soon as they die, the debt man comes collecting. That car goes back, the watch, the house, all these things go back. But a wealthy person who has consciously made the decision over time has said, okay, now that house can be sold and split between the kids. The bank accounts can be split between the kids. And it's going not just to my children, but to my children's children. And there's a stark difference between those two in the way modern Americans use that word.
Interesting. And while saving is important, where you really get your bang for your buck, see how I slipped that one in there? I'm full of them today. The bang for your buck is investing. And you can learn how to invest a big deal. In fact, I remember we were at your son's hockey game, and our granddaughter came, and she loves hockey, and she wanted to sit in there. And we started talking to her about investing money, and she was like, oh yeah, I've got a pretty good nest egg for being a freshman, junior, sophomore in college. And it's in the thousands, and I was pretty happy with that. And I'm like, well, where is your money? And she says, oh, I have it in the bank. I'm saving it. And as we got talking, she was getting 0.3% interest rate in a passbook savings account. And I'm like, hey, there's a better way to do this. And she was intrigued, and so we started talking to her. And all of a sudden, we came up with the CD rates right now, or the investment rates at banks, is really good, 5%, 6%.
CD being certificate of deposit.
There
It's a
you go.
different type
There you
of
go.
savings
Right.
account. Yeah.
It's a simple, no risk. So we convinced her, and her dad was part of this too, to put her money from the savings account to this other one. I talked to her last week. She was so happy. I made $75 this last, and I'm like, great. And she's like, usually I get like $1.85 or something like that. So no risk.
Yeah.
It's just knowing that that's an available investment. So make sure that you understand saving is a part of it, but it goes beyond that. And you have empowering yourself with knowledge and understanding and skills to be a smart investor with your money. It's a lifelong journey.
It is. It's not a point in time. It's a journey over time.
It is.
And let's just break down CDs, or certificates of deposit, for a minute, because I think there's some people out there who maybe have heard the term, but they don't know what that means. So a certificate of deposit is through your bank or your credit union. There's places online you can go sign up for them. If you're new to this, I would not go and search out the best rates and find the online bank. I would go to your local bank or your local credit union and make it as easy as possible for your first time.
And ask
the questions. What are your CDs, and how do they work? And what are the terms? So what I mean by terms is a certificate of deposit is you telling the bank, I'm going to give you X number of dollars, and that bank will then hold that money for the length of the CD, it's called a term, and it could be a 1 year, it could be up to a 5 year. I think they even have like 6 month CDs.
6 months, I've got some.
6 months up to 5 years. You can find a whole variety in between them, but you're saying, I'm not going to pull that money out for this amount of time. And in return, the bank says, we're going to give you X% of your deposit or the money you put in every month until your CD matures or it's now eligible for you to take out. Now, there is a big thing you want to call out here. If you're going to need that money before the CD expires, don't put it in because there is a pretty hefty fee to get it out early.
A penalty, if you will.
Yeah. So it's basically you getting paid for the bank being able to know that they can hold your money for a length of time.
Right. And, our credit union actually has a list. If you give it to us for 6 months, your interest rate, and right now, historically, it's been in the 2-3 for the last several years. Now it's like 5.04, 5.5. I give them my money for 6 months is what I did. They give me 5% return on that. That's free money. Now, in the event of an emergency, you can still access your money, and there is a penalty for doing that. But at the end of 6 months, they'll come back and give you the opportunity to reinvest it. But they'll say for 6 months it's this, for 1 year it's this, for 2 years and 3 years and 4 years and 5 years. We'll lock it in at that interest rate. And it's a good deal. Research it out, but ask your bank questions. They are there. And I've noticed that in the downtrend of customer service, the banking industry has pretty much stayed pretty good if you can get to the right person.
Yeah. Well, I'll give one more example of CDs, and this is how my family does CDs because we have 5 different CDs right now, and we use what's called a CD ladder, and this is one that is maybe not beginner, right? This is intermediate. This is if you're going through the Dave Ramsey steps, trying to get our Dave Ramsey fans back. If you go through the baby steps, it would be after baby step number 3. Now I'm starting to invest. Now I'm starting to save. Now I'm doing all these things, but I'm out of debt. Okay, we have our 6 months worth of emergency fund already set up. I don't need 6 months worth of an emergency fund immediately available. So we took about half of our 6 month emergency fund and we put it into a 5 CD ladder where 1 matures in 1 year, 1/5 matures in 2 years, 1/5 matures in 3 years, 4 and 5, all the way down. And then as that 1 year comes up, we reinvest it for another 5 years. And so each year we have 1/5 of our money available. And then we just re-up for 5 years because most of the time the 5-year term is the biggest amount of return that you'll get back.
Right. I'm going to reel this in a little bit because that is investing, and we will have a specific podcast on investing. That's a little more advanced. The basics are right now, understand you want your money to work for you, and you can go and educate yourself through the banks and the CDs. Remember, I said empower yourself with knowledge on the proficiency of money and being on a lifelong journey. So a couple of the topics we're going to talk about in the next 4 to 6 episodes, and I'll go back and say this, it's important for all ages. Boomers, wake up out there. This is just as important to a bunch of our boomers as it is to the millennials and the Gen Z. Budget. How do you budget your money? Why do you budget your money? What is a budget? That's pretty much the things, and that's just nothing more than making an accounting of where your money goes. How much comes in, how much goes out, how much do I need to save?
And then after that, that's next episode. After that, we'll talk about spending more and spending less. Because in some areas, you need to spend less. Most of the time, I need to spend less on this.
Right.
But in some areas, you might need to be spending more. And there are very specific areas that we're going to talk about that.
Very good. Saving more. Spend less, save more. Yeah. That's the basic premise of doing that. And we all spend money. But if we don't meet our budget, we've got to spend less. And certainly, like I'm in my retirement years now, failed at retirement once, dramatically failed at that. But I tell you, I saved and saved and saved to get to the position that I'm at. You can never save enough, but don't short yourself a lifelong, happy, productive life by saving more. But that's another thing. Spend less, save more.
And then we're going to jump into credit, which I'm really excited about. I feel like my wife and I have been married for 15 years,
Yep.
and we've made a lot of really bad credit decisions over 15 years. But we've also more recently made a lot of really good credit decisions. And so we're going to dig into credit, the good, the bad, the ugly of credit.
And there is good and bad. And you say, well, wait a minute, what's good credit? I thought it was all bad. No, it's not. So listen in for that episode. And then goals, money goals. And not only money goals, but the means of money to reach your goal. The things that you do, live your life, enjoy your life, but do it within the means and always establish some level of goals.
After that, we'll talk about loans and debt, which is different than credit. Loans and debt, we'll talk about which loans should we look at, which loans should we not look at. I think that debt, generally speaking, we can say is bad, but are there good areas of debt that I should consider? Well, we'll jump into that.
Well, and then the next one is investments, preparing for retirement. And I tagged that preparing for retirement on because, I mean, Chase, you're a young guy, but you're going to blink and your kids are going to say, Dad, can I borrow the car? And you're going to blink again and you're going to say, wow, should I retire now or should I wait? And you're going to blink again and you're going to say, wow, should I be taking Social Security or not? And so investments that make your money work for you, we'll talk about that. And then the last one, of course,
taxes. One of the two things that's constant in this world, death and taxes.
Well, and at least death isn't getting any worse, right? I mean, death is as bad as it's going to get. Taxes are going to be continually something to pay attention to and to monitor how you do that. So we've got a good lineup here. We touched on a couple of good things, and let's just kind of end it there with some really good understanding of where we're going to go. We've got it laid out. And remember, just because it's different
doesn't make it wrong.
Thanks. Have a great day.